Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today, Janay Anthony. Now, Janae is actually someone that I saw on Stormy Grace's YouTube Academy, and her class published right around the time that my class did. And I saw her class, and I was just like, oh my goodness, she's so brilliant. I want this woman at my school. And so I sort of kept her in mind. And when the chance came up, she was one of the first people on my list. And I think you're going to see why here today, because she just has that much astrological knowledge and charisma, and she just has so much to share. So I'm really excited to celebrate Janay Anthony with you today. Now, Janay Anthony is actually going to be part of the July speaker series at Synchronicity University, where until the end of June 2022, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class for this incredible lineup of astrologers that we have, this incredible faculty. And you're about to see the quality of astrologer that you get for this unheard of low rate is pretty spectacular. So I'm so excited to celebrate with you today, Janay Anthony. Welcome, Janay. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So it's truly an honor.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. And I just learned that you were at NORWAC, I was at NORWAC, but our paths didn't cross. And I was very disappointed to learn that. But I hope that we get to hug in perfect time.
Yes, we'll meet again soon, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. And so let me ask you about your journey in astrology, because I feel like I didn't really know you. And then I saw you on Stormy's channel, and now I'm seeing you in all kinds of places. So what is your journey like personally in astrology? What made you feel called to astrology?
Yeah, I think I've always had, a curiosity about the occult and like the things in life that you're not supposed to talk about. I was always curious about. It's my Mercury Pluto opposition on my chart, of course. So like as I was getting older and like was able to explore the things that I was actually interested in, astrology was like one of those topics I just kept coming back to and never got bored of and could always find joy in learning something new about. And so like over the years, I kept, reading books and articles. YouTube was actually a major part of my astrology journey. So like learning from your channel, learning from Stormy's channel and a bunch of other YouTube channels was really how I built my foundation in astrology when I was a teenager and couldn't really afford to get like fancy courses or, just didn't have the means to like go deeper into like true study of the subject yet. But yeah, so that was about 10 years ago. It's crazy to say that I've been doing this for 10 years, but yeah, ever since, my first little article that I read about a birth chart, I've just kept going back, and 10 years later, I'm still going back.
I know, right? Isn't it amazing how I really think that astrology chooses you? And chances are, if you're drawn to astrology, it's not the first time or not the first lifetime that you've practiced astrology. And it's pretty incredible how that happens, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's just definitely feels like the more I integrate astrology into my life, like just the day-to-day life outside of like my practice and working with clients, it's like the more in flow and the more in sync I feel with everything else in my life. So it's definitely been an amazing tool to use in that way.
Yeah, I think part of the great thing about these practices is that one lifetime isn't enough to know all there's to know. And as you're learning about yourself, it just enriches your practice that much more.
For sure. So I'm definitely grateful for all the hours and lifetimes that my former lives have put into it, so I can enjoy the benefit of that knowledge in this lifetime.
That's a great way to put it. And so you are going to be teaching at Synchronicity University. And as I mentioned, it's part of the July speaker series. And you guys, we've got these incredible lineup of astrologers, and you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class until the end of June. So about 3 weeks to go from the time that this interview is published. And you are going to be having a comprehensive look at sex in 90 minutes. How does that happen in 90 minutes? I think that you must be looking at this for a while to be able to like really hone it down and get so comprehensive in 90 minutes. Give us a little bit of a sample. Like, is it going to be techniques? Is it going to be planets? What are we going to be looking at?
Yeah, so like you said, 90 minutes is nowhere near enough time to like cover all the topics you could possibly talk about sex, and then putting astrology with it. In this course, I really want to focus on the planets and how planetary energies can be interpreted through the context of sexuality. And so typically the conversation with astrology and sex goes, Mars is about sexuality. The 8th house is about sexuality. And sometimes the 5th house is about sexuality too. And then the conversation tends to end there. But I want to invite people who attend to start being more open-minded and looking at how else can we see sexuality in the chart? Because I truly think that it can be seen everywhere. Every planet has a role to play in sexuality. Every sign has a role to play in sexuality. Every house has a role to play in how, we all relate to our own sexuality. And so this class is really going to be exploring that and to frame sexuality in kind of, a different way, because usually people think about sexual intercourse and that is definitely a part of sexuality, but it goes so much more beyond just the physical. And I really want to elevate the conversation to be about eroticism.
It's so interesting you say that, Janae, because actually just earlier today, I was thinking about this very idea about how sexuality permeates so much of our lives. And yes, it can be, actual, as you mentioned, getting down. We could say it like that, right? My mom watches this, so let's put it that way. But it's also the energy of creation. It's the energy of sensuality. It's the energy of being in your 5 senses, being aware of your 5 senses. It's that energy of what has allowed us to create the world that we live in now, what allows us to love. I mean, there's just so many layers to understanding that that force of sexual energy. And so I love that you're taking this really comprehensive look at it. Like, I understand now why you say comprehensive, because it's not just involving Mars and Venus, but you're actually looking at all of the different planets. And so how do you feel about going through the different planets with me so that those people who are watching right now, they can start looking at their charts differently right off the bat, right away? Do you feel ready for that?
Yeah, of course. Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the moon. What role does the moon play in sexual expression and sexuality?
Yeah. So the moon is, when I think of the moon, I think about safety and how in order for authentic expression to be possible, somebody needs to feel safe in that. And so the moon placement can really talk to like what somebody needs in order to feel safe. And by extension, what is it about other people that makes you feel safe with them, makes you feel connected to them, to be able to, trust that they will be able to hold you, because being sexual with another person can be a very vulnerable state. And vulnerability is also something I like to relate to the moon. And so
that's brilliant. Wow, Janae, that's amazing. You're so right? The moon is what we need to feel safe, as well as all the other things that the moon represents. And even if it's just a moment that you might share, even if you're, up in the club and whatever, and you're just going to have a moment with someone, yeah, you still need to have that sense of safety to even allow yourself to go there. That's a very powerful insight. What about the sun where it comes to sexual expression? How do you understand the sun?
Yeah, so when I think of the sun, I definitely think about autonomy and, where you just said expression is all about the sun. And when I think about autonomy and sexuality, a huge part of that conversation is consent. and, feeling free and open enough to express no when it's not wanted and to express yes when it is wanted, because being autonomous is, you can't really be sexually liberated without, feeling autonomy. So having the space and the freedom to express every yes, every no, every desire is what I relate to the sun.
That's so powerful. And what would you say about Mercury?
Yeah, one of my favorite sex columnists who has a podcast, Emily Morse, she would always say communication is lubrication. And
wow, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I love that line because, a lot of the exchanges with other people, a lot of, the information we pass back and forth in conversation and even in nonverbal cues, I feel like a lot of tension and excitement can build during those exchanges. And Mercury is all about exchange. And so by kind of finessing your Mercury a little bit, you can figure out like, what are those things that titillate interest? Because Mercury is very curious. And if somebody piques your interest over there, that's Mercury being curious about that person.
That's such an interesting way to consider Mercury. I really like that. But let's talk about, a planet that is considered associated with sex much more blatantly, and that is Venus, goddess of love. So how do you understand Venus in the context of sexual expression?
So Venus is a very intuitive planet to think about when you're considering sexuality, because we think about relationships and people coming together and falling in love, which are all very Venus-y things. But the purpose of this class is to really expand how we think about Venus. And so with Venus, there is the element of connecting with other people, but there's also an element of how we connect with ourselves. And by connecting with yourself, loving yourself, you can really start to learn about, like I mentioned before, desire. Like, what do you desire? Another person can't necessarily teach you that. They can give you hints, and you can definitely explore desires with other people, but ultimately that's kind of a self-discovery type of journey. And so when we're thinking about desires and, the types of things that we want and that we like, Venus has a huge role to play in that.
And Mars is also one of those very blatant sexual planets, but how would you help somebody to expand their understanding of Mars in astrology as it relates to sexual expression?
Yeah, and so I think by thinking of Mars just as pure energy, not sexual energy, not aggression, just energy, and how we do things, I think is kind of a way to separate kind of the conditioning we have around Mars, because Mars is a very masculine, patriarchal type of definition when it comes to sexual expression. And sexual expression can look so many different ways, and each of those ways is valid. And Mars is how you do your authentic sexual expression.
Wow, I love that. That you connected that with authenticity with sexual expression, because we know like Mars is what turns you on, but there are other layers to that, because acknowledging what that is that turns you on is a way of being true to yourself too, which is what authenticity is. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think about how, Mars is a very reactionary planet, and how, in situations that involve, heightened sexuality, it's a very reactive type of space to be in. And people don't always think clearly. And, you might make some decisions that might be a little bit regrettable.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, the other parts of the chart regret it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's Mars. You can,
Yeah.
I give you permission to blame your Mars for that.
So Mars leads you to make choices that are so instinctual that afterwards, when other parts beyond your base instinct kick in. You go, oh my God, what was I thinking? But what you were thinking was with your Mars, and your instincts wanted that in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we said before, that is a valid expression as well.
Absolutely. That is an authentic expression as well. Okay, so let's move to the social planets. How about Jupiter?
To me, Jupiter is about transcendent experiences. And I definitely relate transcendence and sexuality together, because a sexual experience can be very transformative, for better and worse. And so when thinking about Jupiter, it really points to, the ability to, experience that non-physical side of sexuality, because, it's about philosophy and the mind to some extent. And so I feel like Jupiter can really expand the boundaries of what a sexual experience can be. It can take place in the physical body, but it can also take place in, the energetic field, or like, you can have a soul connection with somebody, and, a sexual soul experience feels very different than a physical sexual experience. And I feel like that is what Jupiter is talking to.
Wow. That's when it really gets symbolic and transformative, when soul is involved. And again, that's not, I think, and what I'm hearing is that it's not to say that if you meet somebody and you just have one moment, that it can't be soul infused, soul first, but those moments where soul is there, it becomes more than just a physical, instinctual base act. It becomes more. How would you understand Saturn in sexual expression?
Yeah, I feel like Saturn speaks a lot to the societal conditioning, the fear, the boundaries, the taboo nature that a lot of people experience when it comes to sex and sexuality. And so as easily as Saturn creates boundaries and keeps things in, Saturn can also allow for like really deep transformations that stick. So if something changes with Saturn, it's not going to like go back right away. It's going to have a long lasting effect. And so Saturn, when it comes to sexuality, it really challenges your beliefs. It challenges your conditioning. It challenges, just what are those different factors that are holding someone back from being authentic, from truly expressing themselves. And more often than not, it's society. I'll just say it. It's usually society and how we learn about sexuality. But yeah, Saturn can, it can beat, those insecurities down if you learn to work with Saturn. So I think I love Saturn work because, like I mentioned before, the changes that happen with Saturn, they are long lasting and can really change things and make things stable and stronger moving forward.
Well, I know, Janae, that you're going to be sticking to the traditional planets, and they have so much very rich symbolism. I'm sure that there'll be so much to cover and so much to talk about just by looking at traditional planets, traditional rulerships. And it already sounds like very intriguing and very exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you think so, because I'm definitely very excited about like taking this step into integrating astrology and sexuality, because when I'm not doing astrology, I'm working on a degree to become a sex therapist. So
oh, I love that.
Yeah, so
right? I heard that you are getting your master's.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. Yeah, good for you. I am a Sag moon. I'm all about education. So I love that you're doing that. And especially for women, I love women being educated, doing what they have to do to align their lives with greater wisdom. However you find it, however your pathway reveals itself to be, to help you to find it. And so I love that. So you're bringing that other layer of understanding as well.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely lots of room and lots of space for conversations like this to take place.
Yeah. And so you are at the forefront because I haven't come across this kind of information before. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your class, but also what you continue to do with these whole other layers of perspectives that you are going to be bringing. And yay, I'll always be able to say Synchronicity University was one of the first places where you really got to share and explore this different understanding.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to thank you when I'm accepting my Oscar.
Oh, there you go. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Janae. And once again, everybody, remember, you will get the full class of Janae talking about this like really new understanding of the chart and sexuality in a way that I haven't come across in my 32 years I've been studying astrology. So that's how long I've been at this so far, plus my previous lifetimes that I've been at this. And so this is just such new stuff. And I'm so excited to learn more from Janae. And yeah, you guys can learn more from Janae as part of the July speaker series at Synchronicity University. If you sign up before the end of June 2022, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class. Thank you again, Janae, for being here today, for sharing some of your wisdom. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to your class.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to dive even deeper than we got to today.
Yay. And thank you everybody out there for watching. And until we connect again, take care. Bye.